Breaking. Russia launches. Terrifying attack. NATO opens fire. Missiles are falling right now. Over a capital city that never saw it coming. Buildings are burning. Ambulances have been hit. And this is not the end of the story. Because while Russia strikes, NATO is already moving into position. Fighter jets scrambling. Warships watching. Drones falling from the sky over 3 different countries. Something bigger is happening here. And in the next few minutes, you're going to understand exactly what it means. For Ukraine, for NATO, and for the rest of us watching from the outside. Stay with me, because what happens next could change everything. Welcome back, everyone, to the Siege War. Before we go any further, if you've been with us for a while now, you already know how this works. But if this is your first time here, let me ask you something. The way I'd ask a friend sitting right across from me, would you take just a moment right now and press that subscribe button? It costs you nothing, but it means everything to a small channel trying to bring you the truth, straight and honest, story after story. Think of it as pulling up a chair at the table. Once you're in, you're part of the family, and I promise to keep showing up for you. And I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from today? Drop it in the comments below. It always amazes me how far this reaches. Now, let's get into what's really happening. It happened without warning. In the early hours, Russia launched one of its largest attacks on Ukraine since the war began. Missiles came from the sky, missiles came from the sea, and they all had one target, the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. Reports say more than 15 ballistic missiles hit the city within just 30 minutes. These were Iskander KN-23 missiles, known for their speed and precision. Alongside them, several sea-launched cruise missiles were fired from Russian ships. Then came the bombers. 7 Russian Tu-95 and Tu-160 strategic bombers took to the sky. They carried Kh-101 cruise missiles, long-range weapons built to strike from a distance. The footage that followed was hard to watch. A missile struck directly, then another. Explosions lit up the night sky over Kyiv. Buildings shook, fires spread fast. In one video, a missile can be seen falling, and then direct impact. Emergency crews were already struggling to respond when disaster struck again. An ambulance, right in the middle of its rescue mission, was hit by a blast. The vehicle was damaged badly, but by chance, the person inside survived. Elsewhere, in the city of Brovary, located in the Kyiv region, a massive fire broke out. A residential building, where ordinary families live, was struck directly. Flames rose hundreds of feet into the air. Smoke filled the sky for miles. People on the ground described the scene as something out of a nightmare. Streets covered in debris, buildings reduced to burning shells. It looked, in the words of witnesses, like the end of the world had arrived in their own neighborhood. Officials first said 8 people had died, but as rescue teams kept searching through the wreckage, that number rose. At least 12 people are now confirmed dead. Dozens more are injured, some critically. And the number is expected to climb higher as search operations continue. This attack did not come out of nowhere. Just one day earlier, movement was spotted. Russian bombers were seen preparing, fueling up, getting ready for something. At the time, it wasn't clear what that something would be. Now the world knows. It was the opening move of a massive assault. But the missiles didn't stop at homes and apartment buildings. Another location was hit, this time in the city of Zhytomyr. The target this time was different. It was Ukraine's intelligence headquarters, along with a nearby national police building. Video from the scene shows the missile striking directly. A massive explosion followed. The building that once stood tall was left in ruins. Analysts say this wasn't random. Hitting intelligence and police centers isn't about causing panic alone. It's about breaking the systems that keep a country organized during war. Communication, coordination, command. These are the things that keep a nation functioning under pressure, and these are exactly what came under attack. Meanwhile, Ukraine's ability to defend itself is being tested more than ever. Air defense systems rely on interceptors, special missiles built to shoot down incoming threats before they hit the ground, but supplies are running low. And when interceptors run out, more missiles get through, more buildings fall, more lives are put at risk. This single night may go down as one of the most brutal attacks since the war began, not because it was unexpected, but because of just how much destruction it managed to cause in such little time. Homes destroyed, lives lost, a capital city left shaken, its skyline marked by fire and smoke. And as the sun rose the next morning, the full scale of the damage became clear. This was not just another night of the war. This was a turning point, one that would set the tone for everything that came next. The missiles told a story of their own, not just where they landed, but why. Military analysts began studying the pattern almost immediately, and what they found was troubling. This wasn't random destruction, it was calculated. The strike on Ukraine's intelligence headquarters wasn't just another target on a list, it was a message. A message aimed at the very systems that keep a country running during war. Command centers, communication hubs, police coordination units. These are the nerve endings of a nation under siege, and Russia went straight for them. Experts say this shift in targeting reveals something important. This is no longer only about causing fear. It's about weakening Ukraine's ability to respond, to organize, to defend itself. When intelligence centers go dark, coordination breaks down. When police infrastructure is hit, internal security becomes harder to maintain. Every strike chips away at the machine that keeps the country moving, and that machine is already under enormous strain. Because there's another problem, one just as dangerous as the missiles themselves. Ukraine is running low on interceptors. These are the defensive missiles used to shoot down incoming attacks before they hit the ground. Every night, that supply gets a little thinner. Every wave of missiles tests what's left. And when interceptors run out, there's nothing left to stop what's coming. More missiles get through. More buildings fall. More lives hang in the balance. Analysts warn that if this trend continues, Ukraine's defensive shield could weaken significantly in the months ahead. That's not just a military concern, it's a turning point that could shape the entire direction of the war. But while Kyiv was still assessing the damage, attention shifted elsewhere, to the west, to the border between Poland and a small, heavily fortified Russian territory, Kaliningrad. Kaliningrad sits in an unusual spot, squeezed between Lithuania and Poland, cut off from mainland Russia. It is one of the most heavily militarized zones in the world, and it has become the center of a very different kind of tension. For the third straight day, NATO forces have been conducting large-scale military exercises near this region. These aren't ordinary drills. They are simulations, practice runs for what a real strike on Kaliningrad might look like. Fighter jets have filled the skies, stealth aircraft, early warning planes, refueling tankers circling overhead, supporting extended air operations. One aircraft in particular caught the attention of analysts, an EA-37B electronic warfare plane, a specialized aircraft used to jam enemy radar and communications. Its presence signals something serious. This is not a small show of force. This is a rehearsal, and the timing is impossible to ignore. Russia's attack on Kyiv happened just as these NATO drills were already underway. Some analysts believe this is more than coincidence. They argue both sides are sending signals to each other, testing limits, showing strength, without crossing the line into direct confrontation. Russia proving it can strike deep into Ukraine despite pressure from the West. NATO proving it can respond quickly and with overwhelming force if the situation demands it. It's a dangerous kind of dialogue, one spoken not through words but through military movement, through jets in the sky and missiles on the ground. Every action becomes a message. Every drill, every strike, every intercepted drone becomes part of a larger conversation between two sides that are not officially at war with each other, but are edging closer to direct contact with each passing day. And that is what makes this moment so critical. Because when intelligence infrastructure is destroyed on one side, and military exercises simulate an attack on the other, the line between preparation and provocation starts to blur. The world is watching closely, not just to see who strikes next, but to see how far both sides are willing to go before this becomes something far bigger than a single night of missiles and fire. While missiles were still landing near Kyiv, another story was unfolding, quietly but just as significant. Far from the burning buildings, far from the sirens. Along the edges of NATO airspace, a different kind of tension was taking shape. It started with a drone, a Russian naval drone, moving through the waters near a Romanian offshore gas project. Romanian forces spotted it. A Romanian F-16 was scrambled into the air. Within minutes, the drone was brought down. No hesitation, just a direct response to a direct provocation. But that wasn't the only incident. Hours later, a second drone crossed into Romanian airspace. This one came from a different direction, near Galati, close to the border. It flew for several minutes before coming down in an unpopulated area of Tulcea County. No injuries, no damage to property. But the message was clear. Russian drones were testing NATO's borders, probing to see how the alliance would react. In response, 2 Spanish F-18 fighter jets were scrambled to patrol the area. A Romanian helicopter was deployed to monitor the site. Ground forces secured the area within hours. Every step, every response showed the same thing: readiness. NATO wasn't caught off guard. It was watching, waiting, prepared to respond the moment something crossed the line. But this wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of something much larger and much more deliberate. For the third day in a row, NATO has been running large-scale military exercises near the... While Russia's missiles were still smoldering across Kyiv, Ukraine was already fighting back, not just defending, striking. Far from the capital and Russian territory itself, a different kind of battle was unfolding. Ukrainian forces launched a drone swarm attack. Their target, a Russian oil refinery. Footage from the strike shows a drone approaching low, fast, steady, then direct impact. Flames erupted at the site. Smoke rose into the sky, visible for miles. Oil refineries are not just industrial buildings. They are the backbone of Russia's war economy. Every barrel processed helps fund the war effort. Every strike on this kind of target sends a clear message. Ukraine can still hit where it hurts, even deep inside Russian territory. Analysts say this is part of a growing pattern. Ukraine has been shifting more of its strategy toward long-range drone strikes, targeting refineries, targeting fuel depots, targeting the infrastructure that keeps Russia's military machine running. It's a slower kind of pressure, not as loud as a missile strike on a city, but over time it adds up. Damaged refineries mean less fuel. Less fuel means supply problems, and supply problems eventually mean a weaker war effort. But Ukraine's response wasn't only happening far from the front lines, it was happening in the skies above its own soil too. In one encounter, a Russian Pantsir surface-to-air missile system fired at a Ukrainian attack drone. The missile missed. The drone kept flying, continuing its mission. It was a small moment, but a telling one. It showed that even Russia's advanced air defense systems aren't guaranteed to stop everything Ukraine sends into the sky. Then came a moment that stood out above nearly everything else that day. A Ukrainian soldier, positioned on the ground, spotted an incoming Russian attack drone. He didn't wait for backup. He didn't wait for a missile system. He raised a German-supplied MG3 machine gun, and at near point-blank range he opened fire. The drone was hit. It went down. The moment was captured on video. Raw, direct, and almost impossible to believe. A single soldier, a single weapon, stopping a machine built for destruction. It became one of the most talked about pieces of footage from the entire day. Not because it changed the course of the war, but because it captured something deeper. The resourcefulness and resilience still present on the Ukrainian side, even after months of relentless pressure. Taken together, these moments tell a bigger story. Kyiv was hit hard. Civilian buildings were destroyed. Lives were lost. But even in the middle of that devastation, Ukraine's ability to strike back and to defend itself remains active. Still, questions about the road ahead remain serious. Ukraine's air defense interceptors continue to run low. Every night without resupply increases the risk of more missiles getting through. Meanwhile, NATO's military posture near Kaliningrad shows no signs of slowing down. Exercises are expected to continue. Aircraft will likely remain active in the region, and Russian drone activity near NATO borders may continue testing the alliance's response time and patience. Analysts following the situation point to a few key indicators worth watching in the days ahead. First, whether Ukraine receives new interceptor supplies soon, or whether its air defense gap continues to widen. Second, whether NATO's exercises near Kaliningrad expand further or begin winding down. Third, whether drone incursions into NATO airspace increase in frequency, raising the risk of a more serious confrontation. Each of these factors could shape what happens next, not just for Ukraine, not just for Russia, but for the wider stability of the region as a whole. For now, the fires in Kyiv are being put out, the wreckage is being cleared, the dead are being counted, and the injured are being treated. But the underlying tension between Russia's offensive momentum and NATO's defensive posture hasn't eased. If anything, it has tightened. And as both sides continue testing each other's limits, night after night, the question is no longer if the next major escalation will come. It's when, and how far it will go before the world is forced to respond.